I took a deep breath and stared at my phone screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. This was it. The moment I'd been building up to for weeks now. No more second chances. No more empty promises. Tyler had cheated on me with his coworker, and somehow he expected me to just forgive him again, like I always did, like I was some kind of doormat who couldn't walk away. We're done. Don't contact me again. Send. My hand trembled as I set the phone down on the coffee table. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a band around my ribs and was slowly squeezing. Tears pricked at my eyes, blurring my vision. But at least it was over. I was free. Or maybe I was just telling myself that to feel better about the fact that I'd wasted 3 years on someone who never really loved me. The phone buzzed almost immediately. I closed my eyes and let out a shaky breath. Tyler never replied this fast. Maybe the guilt was finally eating at him. Maybe he'd realized what he'd lost. Maybe for once in his life, he actually cared about how I felt. But when I picked up the phone and looked at the screen, my heart stopped. Unknown number. Wrong number, sweetheart. But if you're looking to end something, maybe you should start something new. Come over. I'll make you forget him. My breathing became shallow and uneven. Was this a joke? Some kind of prank? The creep who got lucky with a random text? I checked the number again. Definitely unknown. I must have typed Tyler's number wrong. 1 digit off. That's all it took to send my breakup text to a complete stranger. My heartbeat picked up speed as I started typing a response. Sorry, sent to the wrong person. But before I could hit send, another message appeared. You don't sound sorry. You sound hurt. Tell me his name. I'll handle it. I laughed nervously, staring at the words on my screen. Was this guy serious or just messing with me? There was something unsettling about the confidence in that message. No normal person would respond like this to a misdirected text. I typed back, "Who even are you?" The response came instantly. Someone who doesn't waste time, and someone who doesn't let people cry over losers. You free tonight? I dropped the phone on the table like it had burned me. This was insane. Completely insane. I couldn't just tell some random stranger about the worst day of my life. And I definitely couldn't meet up with someone who talked like we were old friends when I didn't even know his name. But my fingers moved back toward the phone anyway. Tyler's face flashed through my mind. That fake apologetic smile he always wore when he got caught lying. Those rehearsed speeches about how he'd change. All those "I'm sorry baby" texts that never meant anything. My entire relationship had been a joke. And this stranger, this dangerous, confident, possibly unhinged stranger, was offering me a way out. An escape from the pain. I picked up the phone and typed with shaking hands. Where? The reply came within seconds. An address downtown. The name of a private club I'd heard about, but only in whispers and rumors. The kind of place where powerful people went to conduct business away from prying eyes. Where money talked and secrets stayed buried. Then came one final message. Don't be scared. I don't bite unless you ask. I locked my phone and covered my face with my hands. This was stupid, dangerous, reckless. Everything my rational brain was screaming at me not to do. But I was already walking toward the door, grabbing my keys from the hook, pulling on my jacket with numb fingers. Because if I didn't do something tonight, if I just sat here in my apartment drowning in self-pity, I'd become that person again. The one who let Tyler walk all over him. The one who accepted breadcrumbs of affection and called it love. Tyler had broken something inside me, piece by piece, until I barely recognized myself anymore. But tonight, I was going to try to put those pieces back together. Whatever that meant. Whatever the consequences. I stepped out into the cool night air and locked my apartment door behind me. The city was alive with sounds. Cars honking, people laughing, music drifting from nearby bars. Normal people living normal lives. And here I was, about to meet a stranger who could be anyone. A killer, a psychopath, someone who preyed on vulnerable people having bad days. But as I walked toward my car, I realized something. I didn't care. For the first time in months, I felt something other than numbness. Fear, yes, but also anticipation. Curiosity. A desperate need to feel alive again, even if it meant walking straight into danger. I drove through the city streets, following the GPS directions to the address he'd sent. The buildings grew taller and more expensive looking as I got closer to downtown. This wasn't my part of town. These were places where CEOs and politicians and people with real money spent their evenings. When I finally pulled up outside the club, I almost turned around. There was no flashy sign, no line of people waiting to get in. Just a plain black door with a single security guard standing outside, arms crossed over his chest. I parked and sat in my car for a full minute, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to talk myself out of this. But Tyler's voice echoed in my head, all those times he'd called me boring, predictable, too afraid to take risks. Maybe he was right. Maybe that's why he'd looked elsewhere for excitement. I got out of the car before I could change my mind. The security guard watched me approach with an unreadable expression. When I reached the door, he didn't move. I'm supposed to meet someone here, I said, my voice coming out weaker than I'd intended. He raised an eyebrow. Name? Quinn Sawyer. He pulled out a tablet and scrolled through something, then nodded once and opened the door. Top floor. He's waiting for you. Those 3 words sent a chill down my spine. He's waiting. Like this had been planned. Like I'd been expected. I stepped inside and found myself in a dimly lit hallway with an elevator at the end. My footsteps echoed as I walked, each one feeling heavier than the last. This was my last chance to turn back, to go home, to pretend this never happened. Instead, I pressed the elevator button and watched the doors slide open. The ride up felt endless. My reflection stared back at me from the polished metal walls, pale, anxious, looking every bit as scared as I felt. What was I doing? What did I think would happen when those doors opened? But it was too late for second thoughts now. The elevator chimed softly and the doors opened, revealing a spacious room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And sitting on a leather couch in the center of it all was him, the stranger who'd changed everything with just a few text messages. He looked up when the elevator doors opened and I felt the air shift in the room. Everything about him screamed power, from the way he sat with casual confidence, to the sharp intelligence in his eyes as they locked onto mine. Tall, even sitting down I could tell. Broad shoulders filling out a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Dark hair styled in that perfectly messy way that looked effortless, but probably wasn't. And that face, angular and striking, like something carved from marble. So you actually came, he said, his voice smooth but with an edge that made my skin prickle. I stood frozen in the elevator doorway, suddenly feeling completely exposed under his gaze. Yeah, I guess I did. I tugged at my jacket awkwardly. I don't even know why. Because you wanted to. He set down the glass of whiskey he'd been holding and stood up slowly, deliberately. And because you're tired of playing it safe. I wanted to take a step back, but my body wouldn't cooperate. He moved closer, not touching me but somehow making me feel cornered, just by existing in the same space. I'm Daniel, he said, stopping just a few feet away. And you're Quinn, the guy who just broke up with someone over text. I didn't mean to send it to you, I know, but you did. He tilted his head slightly, studying my face like he was reading a book. And now I'm curious. What kind of person makes someone like you feel this desperate? My breath caught in my throat. Someone like me? Yeah. Sharp mind, I can see it in your eyes. Nervous energy radiating off you in waves. Loyal to a fault. Probably. His gaze dropped to my lips for half a second before returning to meet my eyes. You've been hurt before. More than once. I let out a bitter laugh. Are you some kind of therapist now? No. Just observant. He stepped back, finally giving me room to breathe. Sit, talk. Or leave if you want. But don't lie to yourself and say you didn't come here hoping for something different. I couldn't argue with that. I walked over to the couch and sat down, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to keep them from shaking. Daniel poured a drink without asking if I wanted one and handed it to me. Our fingers brushed briefly, and I felt electricity shoot up my arm. So he said casually, settling into the chair across from me. Who's Tyler? Just hearing the name made my chest constrict. My ex. He cheated on me, multiple times. And I kept forgiving him like an idiot. Why? I stared down at the amber liquid in my glass. Because I thought if I just tried harder, if I was better somehow, he'd stop. He'd finally see me as enough. Daniel's jaw tightened, and for a moment something dark flashed across his face. That's not love. That's control. He made you feel like you weren't enough so you'd keep trying to please him. I looked up sharply, shocked by how accurately he'd summed up 3 years of my life in one sentence. Those were the words I'd never been able to say out loud. The truth I'd buried under layers of self-blame. You deserve better, Daniel said firmly. Deep down you know that. That's why you're here instead of home begging him for another chance. I took a long sip of the drink, welcoming the burn as it went down. The silence stretched between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. So what do you do? I finally asked, trying to shift the focus away from my mess of a love life. You're clearly not ordinary. Daniel's lips curved into a smirk. Define ordinary. You know what I mean. This place. The way that guard knew my name before I said it. The way you talk like you're used to getting whatever you want. He leaned back in his chair, never breaking eye contact. Let's just say I run things in this city. People listen when I talk. Problems have a way of disappearing when I want them to. My stomach twisted with a mixture of fear and something else I couldn't quite name. You're in the Mafia. That's a strong word. His smile widened slightly, but not inaccurate. I should have stood up right then. Should have thanked him for the drink and left before I got in over my head. Instead, I stayed rooted to the spot, unable to look away from him. I should go, I said, even though I made no move to stand. You should, but you won't. Daniel rose from his chair and walked over to me, moving with predatory grace. He crouched down in front of me so we were at eye level. His face just inches from mine. You came here tonight because you wanted to feel something real, he said quietly. Something that wasn't rehearsed apologies and broken promises. So stay. Just 1 hour. And if you still want to leave at that, I won't stop you. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. There was danger in his eyes. Yes. But there was also something else. A kind of intensity that made me feel seen in a way Tyler never had. I nodded slowly, not trusting my voice. Daniel's smile was genuine this time, reaching his eyes. Good boy. And somehow that simple phrase made me relax. For the first time that night, I felt like maybe I was exactly where I needed to be. Dangerous or not. At least this was real. At least Daniel wasn't pretending to be something he wasn't. We talked for hours after that. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. Told me stories about growing up on the streets, fighting his way to the top through sheer determination. Showed me a glimpse of the man behind the power, someone who understood what it meant to be underestimated. To have to prove yourself over and over. Tyler was my first real boyfriend. I admitted at some point, the alcohol loosening my tongue. I thought he was the one. Sounds ridiculous now. Not ridiculous, just hopeful. Daniel refilled my glass. Hope isn't a weakness, Quinn. It's just dangerous with the wrong people. Have you ever been in love? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Daniel paused, something unreadable crossing his face. Once. A long time ago. What happened? He left. Made the smart choice and got out before things got too complicated. He took a drink. I'm not exactly boyfriend material, as you can probably tell. Why not? Because my world isn't safe. It's late nights and difficult choices. Secrets I can never share. Most people can't handle that reality. I should have heard the warning in his words. Should have recognized it for what it was. A way out before I got in too deep. But I just sat there, drawn to him like a moth to a flame. Unable to walk away even though I knew I probably should. 1 hour turned into 2. Then 3. I'd expected awkwardness, tension, maybe some regret about meeting a stranger from a wrong number text. Instead, I found myself talking to Daniel more easily than I'd talked to anyone in years. He didn't treat me like I was fragile or broken, didn't offer shallow sympathy or tell me everything would be fine. He just listened, really listened, and somehow that meant more than any comforting words could have. You know what the worst part was? I said, surprised at how much I was sharing. I saw the texts between Tyler and his coworker. Saw how he talked about me. Like I was just convenient. Someone who'd always be there waiting. And you stayed anyway. Daniel wasn't judging, just stating a fact. For 6 more months after that, I told myself he deserved another chance. That everyone makes mistakes. I laughed bitterly. Turns out there were a lot more mistakes than I knew about. Daniel leaned forward, his expression serious. You stayed because leaving felt harder than staying. Because starting over meant admitting you'd wasted time on someone who didn't value you. That's not weakness, Quinn. That's human. Somehow, Hearing him say that made the knot in my chest loosen slightly. What about you? I asked, wanting to shift the focus. You said someone left. Did you see it coming? I pushed him away. Daniel's voice was matter of fact, but I caught something beneath it, old pain, carefully buried. Told myself I was protecting him from my lifestyle. Truth is, I was protecting myself from caring too much. Do you regret it? Every day. He met my eyes. But I'd do it again, because caring about someone in my world makes them a target, makes them vulnerable, and I won't be responsible for someone getting hurt because of me. There was another warning buried in those words. I heard it this time, recognized it for what it was. But I didn't pull away. Daniel's phone buzzed suddenly, shattering the intimacy of the moment. He glanced at the screen and his entire demeanor changed. The easy conversation replaced by something cold and focused. I need to take this. Don't move. He walked to the far corner of the room, and even though I couldn't hear his words, I could see the transformation. This was the man people feared, the one who made problems disappear. His voice was low and controlled, but there was steel underneath, a promise of consequences for whoever was on the other end of that call. When he returned, the warmth had drained from his eyes. Something came up. I need to leave. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch. But you're not going home alone. Not tonight. I'm fine, really. Tyler knows where you live, doesn't he? The question stopped me cold. Yeah. But he wouldn't what? Show up drunk and angry? Blame you for ruining his life? Get violent when you refuse to take him back? Daniel's voice had an edge now. Men like him don't handle rejection well, Quinn. Especially not when they've been using someone as their safety net. I clenched my fists, hating that he was right. Tyler had shown up at my apartment before when I'd tried to break things off, had called me dozens of times in a row, had made scenes in public. I'd always told myself it was because he loved me. Now I recognized it for what it really was. Control. Come with me, Daniel said firmly. You can stay at my place tonight. I have a guest room. No expectations, no strings attached. I barely know you. You know enough. He held out his hand and I stared at it like it was a lifeline. Trust me or don't. But I'm not leaving you vulnerable when I know there's a et. My heart raced as I weighed the options. Going home alone, wondering if Tyler would show up. Or going with Daniel, this dangerous stranger who somehow made me feel safer than I'd felt in years. I took his hand. Okay. The ride to Daniel's penthouse was quiet, my mind racing with questions I didn't know how to ask. When we arrived, I was struck by how different it was from what I'd expected. Clean lines, minimal furniture, everything in its place. It looked like a showroom, not a home. Guest room is down that hallway, Daniel said, tossing his keys onto the counter. Bathroom has everything you need. Help yourself to whatever. I nodded awkwardly, suddenly aware of how strange this situation was. Thank you for all of this. He crossed the space between us slowly. You don't have to thank me, Quinn. I feel like I do. Want to know why I replied to your text? His voice had dropped lower, more intimate. I swallowed hard. Why? Because most people would have ignored it, deleted it, laughed about the wrong number and moved on. His hand came up to brush my jaw gently. But you sounded real, hurt. And I don't ignore that. My breath caught as his thumb traced my jawline. Daniel, I can stop. Say the word and I'll step back, show you to the guest room, and we'll pretend this is just me helping someone in need. His eyes searched mine. But if you don't say it, I'm going to kiss you. Every rational thought in my head screamed that this was too fast, that I'd just ended things with Tyler hours ago, that I was vulnerable and making decisions I'd regret tomorrow. But I didn't want rational. I wanted this. Wanted him. Don't stop. Daniel's lips met mine, and it was nothing like kissing Tyler. This was fire and intensity and feeling everything all at once. I gasped against his mouth, and he deepened the kiss, his hands gripping my waist and pulling me closer. My fingers tangled in his hair as I lost myself completely in the sensation. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. You're dangerous, Quinn Sawyer, he murmured. I laughed breathlessly. Says the actual Mafia boss. Fair point. He leaned in again, but his phone rang loud and insistent. Daniel cursed under his breath and answered. What? His tone was sharp. All business. I couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but I watched his expression darken. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He hung up and looked at me, conflict clear on his face. I have to go. Right now. Is everything all right? It will be. He kissed my forehead quickly. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone. I'll be back before morning. Daniel, promise me, Quinn. I nodded slowly. I promise. He left and I was alone in the massive penthouse with my racing heart and kiss-swollen lips. I walked to the guest room but knew sleep wouldn't come. Instead, I sat by the window and watched the city lights, wondering what I'd gotten myself into and why I wasn't more afraid of the answer. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Daniel's kiss still lingered on my lips like a ghost I couldn't shake. His touch, his words echoing in my head, the way he'd said I deserved someone who really saw me. It felt like he'd looked straight through all my defenses and found something worth keeping. I stood by the guest room window, watching the city lights blink like scattered stars across the skyline. This felt surreal. Yesterday I'd been trapped in Tyler's web of manipulation and lies. Today I was standing in a stranger's penthouse. A stranger who might be dangerous, might be a criminal, but who somehow made me feel safer than I'd felt in years. My phone buzzed on the nightstand and I knew without looking who it was. I picked it up and saw the flood of messages from Tyler. You can't just end things like this. I know you're upset, but we can fix this. Quinn, answer me. Where are you? My chest tightened as I scrolled through them. This was the cycle I knew too well, manipulation dressed up as concern. Tyler thought if he sent enough messages, showed enough persistence, I'd eventually cave and come crawling back. That's what I'd always done before. But not this time. I silenced my phone and set it face down, refusing to give him any more of my energy. Around 5 in the morning, I heard the front door open. Footsteps quiet but heavy enough to carry weight. Daniel. I left the guest room and found him in the kitchen, jacket discarded on a chair, shirt sleeves still rolled up to his elbows, and there was blood on his knuckles. My breath caught in my throat. Daniel. He looked up sharply, his body tensing for a split second before he recognized me and relaxed. You should be sleeping. I couldn't. I moved closer slowly, my eyes fixed on his injured hand. What happened? Work. His voice was flat, offering nothing. I reached out and gently took his hand in mine. Let me clean that. He didn't pull away, just watched me with those intense eyes as I led him to the sink. I turned on the water and carefully washed his knuckles, watching the blood mix with water and spiral down the drain in dark red streaks. Daniel stood perfectly still, but I could feel his gaze on me, studying, evaluating, maybe trying to decide if I could be trusted with this glimpse behind his carefully constructed walls. Does it hurt? I asked softly. I've had worse. That's not really an answer. A faint smile touched his lips. You're stubborn, and you're avoiding the question. I grabbed a clean towel and dried his hand carefully. You don't have to tell me what happened, but at least let me take care of this. He stared at me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Then suddenly he pulled me closer, his hand cupping the back of my neck with surprising gentleness. You're too good for this world, Quinn. I'm really not. Yes, you are. His voice dropped lower, more intimate, and that's exactly why I shouldn't keep you here. My heart sank. What do you mean, this? He gestured vaguely between us, around the penthouse. Me? My life. It's not safe. People around me get hurt. They become targets. I can protect you from Tyler, but I can't shield you from everything that comes with being close to me. I looked into his eyes and saw something I hadn't expected. Guilt. Fear. Real vulnerability beneath all that controlled power. Maybe I don't need protection, I said quietly. Maybe I just need honesty. His jaw clenched. You want honesty? Yes, I want you, Quinn. More than I should. More than is smart or safe. His thumb traced along my jawline. And that terrifies me. My breath came out shaky. Why? Because people I care about don't last. They leave when they realize what being with me really means. Or worse, they get hurt because of who I am and what I do. His grip on my neck slightly. Not painful but possessive. And I won't let that happen to you, Daniel. He kissed me before I could finish, hard and desperate, like he was fighting himself and losing. I kissed him back just as fiercely, my hands fisting in his shirt and pulling him closer. I didn't care about the danger, didn't care about the blood or the secrets or the darkness that surrounded him. I just wanted this. Wanted him. When we finally broke apart, both of us gasping for air, Daniel rested his forehead against mine. Stay, he whispered, just for today. Let me have this. I smiled softly despite everything. Okay. We spent the day together in quiet domesticity that felt oddly normal. Daniel cooked breakfast and I was surprised by how good it was. We sat on the couch and just existed in the same space. No pressure. No expectation. He told me about his family, how he'd lost them when he was young, how he'd built his empire from absolutely nothing through sheer will and determination. I shared my dreams with him, the ones Tyler had slowly crushed under the weight of his indifference and criticism. But as evening approached, reality came crashing back. Daniel's phone rang and I watched his expression harden the moment he answered. When? A pause. I'll handle it. He hung up and looked at me, conflict clear on his face. Tyler's looking for you. He went to your apartment and caused a scene. My stomach dropped. What? Your neighbors called the police. He's not there anymore, but he's not giving up either. Daniel's voice had gone cold. Dangerous. He's going to keep coming, Quinn. Until someone makes him stop. I'll talk to him. I'll tell him to leave me alone. That won't work. Men like him don't listen to reason. Daniel stood up, his jaw tight. But I can make him listen. What are you going to do? He didn't answer. Just grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Daniel, he turned, his eyes dark and unreadable. Do you trust me? I hesitated because I knew what he was really asking. Do you trust me to cross lines you can never come back from? Do you trust me to do whatever it takes, even if it means getting my hands dirty? Yes, I whispered. I trust you. Daniel nodded once, then left. And I was alone again, my heart pounding and my mind racing. I paced back and forth across the living room, unable to sit still, unable to stop wondering if I'd just made the right choice or the biggest mistake of my life. But beneath the anxiety there was a strange sense of calm, because Daniel had given me his word and somehow I knew, absolutely knew, that he would keep it. Whatever he was about to do, he was doing it for me. And that realization was both terrifying and comforting at the same time. Daniel came back late that night. I'd been waiting on the couch, unable to sleep, unable to do anything except replay every possible scenario in my head. When the door opened, I jumped to my feet. Did you? He won't bother you again. Daniel's voice was calm. Too calm. What does that mean? My voice shook. Daniel, what did you do? He walked past me and poured himself a drink. His hands were clean this time. No blood. But somehow that made it worse. More calculated. More controlled. I had a conversation with him. Made some things very clear. What kind of conversation? Daniel took a long drink before finally meeting my eyes. The kind that leaves no room for misunderstanding or second chances. I stepped closer. You hurt him. I made sure he understands what will happen if he contacts you again. Daniel set the glass down with deliberate care. That's all you need to know. No. That's not. I took a breath, trying to steady myself. I need to know what you did. Why? So you can feel guilty about it? So you can second guess trusting me? His voice had an edge now. You wanted him gone, Quinn. I made that happen. I didn't want you to hurt him. Then what did you want? Daniel's eyes blazed. You wanted me to politely ask him to respect your boundaries? To have a reasonable conversation with someone who's been ignoring your no for months? That's not how my world works. That's not how you deal with men who think they own people. I fell silent because he was right. I'd wanted Tyler out of my life, but I hadn't wanted to face what that actually required. Hadn't wanted to acknowledge that sometimes the only language certain people understand is fear. Daniel's expression softened slightly. He closed the distance between us, his voice quieter now. I didn't kill him, Quinn. He's alive. Scared but alive. He won't come near you again. That's what matters. My chest felt tight. What if someone comes after you because of this? What if there are consequences? That's my problem to handle, not yours. He cupped my face gently, forcing me to meet his eyes. I told you I protect what's mine. I'm not yours. Aren't you? The words hung between us, heavy with truth I couldn't deny anymore. Somewhere between that wrong number text and this moment, I'd let him in completely. Let him become someone who mattered more than I'd ever intended. I'm scared, I whispered. Of me? Of losing you. Tears welled up in my eyes. Of getting attached to someone who lives like this. Someone who could disappear one day and I'd never even know why. Daniel pulled me into his chest, his arms wrapping around me tightly. I'm not going anywhere, he murmured against my hair. Not unless you tell me to. I held on to him as tears finally spilled over. This wasn't what I'd planned. This wasn't what I deserved. Maybe, but it was real. Raw. Honest in a way nothing with Tyler had ever been. And I couldn't let go. The next day was different. Daniel took me out properly. No hiding, no secrecy. We went to dinner at an upscale restaurant, and I felt his hand on my lower back as we walked in. People watched us, curious glances, cautious assessments. But Daniel didn't seem to care. He wanted people to see me with him. This was his way of claiming me. Subtly but publicly. "You're making a statement," I said quietly as we sat down. "I am." He smiled slightly. "Is that a problem?" "No. Just unexpected. Get used to it, Quinn. I don't do things halfway." We ate and talked and laughed, and for the first time in years I felt genuinely happy. Daniel introduced me to some of his business associates who stopped by our table, treating me with respect, with protectiveness. Like I wasn't a secret, like I mattered. But halfway through dessert, Daniel's phone buzzed. His expression changed instantly, all warmth draining from his face. "I need to take this." He stood up. "I'll be right back." I watched him walk outside, his posture tense and focused. Something was wrong. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 15. I signaled the waiter. "Can I get the check?" "Already taken care of, sir. Courtesy of Mr. Daniel." "Of course." I stepped outside to look for Daniel. He was standing near the corner, phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and angry. "I don't care what it takes. Fix it. Now." He hung up and noticed me standing there. "Everything all right?" I asked. "Yeah. Just business." He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Let's go." But I knew better. Something was wrong, and he wasn't telling me. I took his hand as we got into the car. "Daniel, talk to me." He exhaled slowly, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. "There's some heat from a deal that went bad. Nothing I can't handle." "Heat? What does that mean?" "It means people are upset. And when people in my world get upset, they get dangerous." He looked at me seriously. "Which is why I need you to stay close. No going out alone. Not until this is resolved." My heart raced. "You think someone's gonna come after me?" "I think you're close to me now, and that makes you a potential target." His jaw was tight. "I won't let anything happen to you, Quinn. But you need to listen to me. Please." I nodded slowly. "Okay." He pulled me close and kissed my forehead. "I mean it, stay safe. For me." "I will." But deep down I knew. This was only the beginning. And if I wanted to be with Daniel, really be with him, I'd have to accept the darkness that came with his life. The danger that would always be lurking just beneath the surface. The question was whether I was strong enough to handle it. The next few days felt suffocating. Daniel was barely home. Always on his phone. Always dealing with some crisis I wasn't privy to. Late nights. Tense conversations behind closed doors. I tried to act normal, but fear was creeping in like cold water rising around me. What if something happened to him? What if someone actually came after me? I was confined to the penthouse, and for the first time I noticed the bodyguards posted discreetly outside. Daniel's protection had been there all along. Subtle but constant. One night, Daniel came home early. Unexpected. His face was hard, drawn tight with tension. "Pack a bag," he said immediately. "What? Why?" "We're leaving. Tonight." My stomach dropped. "Daniel, don't argue, please." His voice cracked slightly, and it was the first time I'd seen him truly vulnerable. "They know where I live. And they know about you." "Who?" "People I've crossed. People who don't play by rules." He grabbed my shoulders, his grip firm but not painful. "I can handle myself, but I can't risk you getting caught in the crossfire." I placed my hands on his chest. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe, just for a few days until things cool down." And then, he hesitated, and I saw the conflict in his eyes. "Then you decide if us is worth all of this." My heart broke a little. "Daniel, I mean it, Quinn. You deserve a normal life. Not this constant looking over your shoulder, not this danger." His eyes were glassy with unshed emotion. "But I'm selfish enough to hope you'll stay anyway." I kissed him deeply, desperately, trying to pour everything I felt into that moment. "I'm staying," I whispered against his lips. "Wherever you go, I go." Daniel held me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You're out of your mind." I learned from the best. We left that night without a clear destination. Just driving, the city lights fading behind us until there was nothing but open road and darkness. I sat in the passenger seat with Daniel's hand clasped in mine. No music, just the sound of the engine and our breathing. I didn't ask questions. I trusted him completely. Hours later, we arrived at a cabin tucked away in the woods. Remote. Quiet. Safe. "This is mine," Daniel said as we stepped inside. "No one knows about it except my most trusted people. It's perfect." We unpacked in silence. The tension was thick but not uncomfortable, just heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. Daniel built a fire and we sat together in front of it, watching the flames dance. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For what?" "For dragging you into this mess. For being selfish enough to want you despite knowing how dangerous it is." I turned to face him fully. "I chose this. I chose you." "Why?" "Because you see me. Really see me, not the version I pretend to be. Not the guy who stayed too long with someone who didn't value him. Just me, exactly as I am." Daniel's eyes softened in the firelight. "You're everything I didn't know I needed, Quinn." He kissed me slowly this time, gently, like he was memorizing every detail, and I kissed him back, pouring all my fear and hope and love into it. Because despite everything, despite the danger and the uncertainty, I was exactly where I wanted to be. The next morning was peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Daniel made coffee and we sat on the porch watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "What happens now?" I asked softly. "I handle the situation, clean up the mess," and then he looked at me with something like hope in his eyes. "Then we figure out what normal looks like for us." "Do you think that's possible?" "I don't know, but I want to try." He squeezed my hand. "With you?" I smiled genuinely and completely. "Okay, let's try." Daniel explained that his people were handling the situation back in the city, that the threats were being neutralized, that we could return soon. But I wasn't in a rush. This cabin, this peace, this time with Daniel, it was perfect. Weeks later, we were back in the city. Everything had calmed down. Daniel had handled whatever threat existed with the efficiency I'd come to expect from him. Tyler never contacted me again. I suspected Daniel had made certain of that. Life moved forward. And us? We lasted. Not perfectly. There were challenges, late nights when I didn't know where he was. Moments when his world threatened to pull us apart. But we were real. We were strong. One night, Daniel looked at me with unusual seriousness. "Move in with me." Officially, my heart skipped. "Are you sure?" I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Tears pricked my eyes as I smiled. "Yes." Daniel pulled me into his arms and kissed me deeply, thoroughly. "I love you, Quinn Sawyer. I love you too." And for the first time in my life, I felt like I'd found home. Not a place, but a person. Daniel had given me space in his world. Danger and flaws and reality included. And I'd accepted it all. Because love isn't perfect. Love is messy and complicated and sometimes scary. But when it's real, when it's honest and raw and worth fighting for, it makes everything else worthwhile. We'd both been broken in different ways. But somehow, together we were becoming whole. And that was more than I'd ever dared to hope for when I'd sent that text to the wrong number.